I never used to dislike holidays. In fact, I used to feel pretty neutral about them. But over the last 3 years, they've become a living nightmare for me. It's not the holidays themselves that are the problem, it's my mother. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate her, but I can't stand being around her for too long. She lives far away, and for most of the year, we only talk on the phone. When she starts nagging me over the phone, I can just hang up. But when she comes to visit during the holidays, I can't just walk away. When are you going to have kids? When are you going to give me grandchildren? For heaven's sake, Jane, you and Mike have been married for 6 years. It's time to start a family. I want grandchildren. At first, I tried to calm her down. I told her that Mike and I had decided not to have kids until we were financially stable and had traveled to all the places we wanted to visit. It was our 3rd wedding anniversary when she started pressuring me. Mike had a good job, we owned our home, and she kept saying, I want grandchildren while I'm still young enough to enjoy them. The problem was, I felt the opposite. I was still young and wanted to live my life a little before having kids. But I couldn't tell her that, so I lied. We're trying, Mom, but it's not happening yet. That was the wrong answer. From then on, at least once a week, she would ask if anything had happened. I would say no, that we were still trying. This went on for about 6 months, and then she started giving me advice on how to increase my chances of getting pregnant. I would say I'd try her suggestions, and in the next phone call, I'd tell her I had tried but nothing had happened yet. It got to the point where I was afraid to answer her calls. One day, I snapped. I was already having a bad day, and when the phone rang and I heard her say, Hi, Jane, I just blurted out, Good morning, Mom. No, I'm not pregnant. We got into a huge fight, and I told her that it seemed like the only reason she called was to ask if I was going to have a baby. The holidays were even worse. Mom would always come to visit, and while I could hang up on her during phone calls, I couldn't just walk away when she was sitting across from me at the dinner table. Grandkids, grandkids, grandkids. That's all I heard for hours on end. She would bring up how she already had me and my sister, Emily, by the time she was my age. The older you get, the harder it is to raise kids. You need to start your family now. Mentioning Emily always set me off. I both hated and envied her for one simple reason: she didn't have to listen to Mom's lectures. On Emily's 21st birthday, Mom asked her when she was going to settle down, get married, and have kids. Emily, in front of all the guests, said, I'm not planning on it. I'm gay, and my partner and I have no plans to adopt. After that, all of Mom's attention shifted to me. Mike and I had been married for 6 years when I finally decided it was time to have kids. I discussed it with Mike, and though he wasn't overly enthusiastic, he said, Okay, if that's what you want. But it seemed like the universe was punishing me for all the lies I had told my mom. A year and a half went by, and I still wasn't pregnant. I even tried all the things Mom had suggested, though I had only pretended to follow her advice before. Nothing worked. I went for a checkup, and the doctors said there was no reason I shouldn't be able to conceive and carry a child. I asked Mike to get checked too. A week later, he told me everything was fine. It'll happen, honey. We just need to keep trying. We kept trying, but nothing happened. We probably would have kept going like that if I hadn't run into my old college friend, Kate, at the grocery store one day. Kate and I weren't super close, but we kept in touch, exchanging holiday cards and talking on the phone a couple of times a year. Kate had become a nurse and worked at a clinic. After running into her, we decided to have lunch together and catch up. During lunch, Kate suddenly asked, Can I ask you a really personal question? I said, Sure, but I can't promise I'll answer. She said, You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm curious. How's your love life? That wasn't the question I was expecting, and I hesitated before answering. Everything's fine. Why do you ask? Kate said, I was just worried. You know, men sometimes lie. They have such fragile egos that they don't always tell the truth. I didn't understand where she was going with this. What are you getting at? Why are you asking? Kate said, Just curiosity. Mike says everything's great every time he comes in for his checkups, but I never know if he's being honest. Not all men in the male contraception program are truthful, and it skews the data. We know the cocktail, that's what we call the drug, has side effects. It can weaken male potency in about 4% of participants, but that number could be higher or lower depending on how honest the participants are. Mike had never mentioned this to me. The only thing I knew was that he had signed up for the program because I had issues with birth control pills. Kate explained that the drug, which didn't have an official name yet, was a mix of synthetic testosterone and progestin that suppressed testosterone production in men. Its effectiveness was around 80%, so there were failures, and participants were warned about this and had to sign a waiver. After lunch with Kate, I was furious. All this time, I had been trying to get pregnant, doing everything I could, even following the most ridiculous advice, and Mike had been participating in a male contraception program. If he had been there at that moment, I would have screamed at him. I was so angry that I went to a bar to have a drink and calm down. Sitting there, I tried to figure out what to do next. As I sat at a cafe table, thinking about how to punish Mike when I got home, I suddenly heard, "Jane, darling. Long time no see." I looked up and saw Greg, my ex-boyfriend, or rather, my ex-lover. Greg was the second man I had ever been with. "Can I join you?" he asked. "Of course," I said. A few hours later, I found myself in a hotel room with Greg. It seemed like he was trying to make up for the 8 years we hadn't seen each other. This was my first time cheating on my husband, which probably shows how angry I was at Mike. Greg and I were intimate 4 times that day. As we were getting dressed to leave, he asked if we could see each other again. I almost said no. Greg, this was a mistake. A pleasant mistake, but still a mistake. But then it hit me. What if Greg got me pregnant? That would be a great lesson for Mike. He knew there was a 20% chance the program he was in could fail. "You know what? Why not?" I said to Greg. "I can't contact you, but give me your number so I can find you." He gave me his number, and over the next 2 months, Greg and I met in secret. We saw each other 3 or 4 times a week during the day, and on Tuesdays, when Mike went bowling, I spent the evening with Greg. But no matter how much time we spent together, I still didn't get pregnant. By then, I was determined to have a child. Since neither Mike nor Greg could make it happen, I started looking up other ex-boyfriends and lovers. By the end of the year, I had 7 men in my life, including Mike and Greg. Honestly, I had never felt so satisfied, but I still wasn't pregnant. One day, over lunch with Greg before another meeting, he suddenly said, "Yesterday, I was playing cards with the guys, and let's just say I won, or lost, depending on how you look at it." I asked, "What do you mean?" He said, "You know how men like to brag about their conquests? Well, first, Jeff started talking about how he had an affair with you. Then Art joined in and said he did too." Mark laughed, and we asked him what was so funny. He said, "I wonder how she manages to keep up with all of us. I guess we're all sleeping with each other's exes and don't even realize it." I didn't know what to say, but I realized I had been caught. "So it's true? You've been seeing all of us?" I admitted that it was. Greg wanted to know why I had become so insatiable. "It's not that," I said. "I just want to get pregnant. That's what husbands are for. Well, for some people, but not for mine." I told him the whole story. "Aren't you worried you might end up giving Mike someone else's child?" Greg asked. "What I'm trying to do is get pregnant. I want to stay home and raise a child. Mike has been lying to me, saying he's trying his hardest to give me a baby. In the end, he'll never know. Besides, it could still be his child. The program has a 20% failure rate." With the holidays approaching, I didn't want to hear my mom's complaints about when I was going to give her grandchildren. Greg asked if I knew when my highest chance of getting pregnant was and if I was tracking my temperature. "Yes, I know," I said. "Next time you're ready, we'll make sure you get pregnant. Trust me, you won't be disappointed." A week later, on Monday, I called Greg. "My peak is in 2 days. Let's meet tomorrow for lunch at the usual place, and be ready to stay as long as it takes." That evening, over dinner, I told Mike, "You're not going bowling on Tuesday. You're staying home tomorrow and Thursday night." Mike said, "But honey, it's the bowling finals, and we're fighting for first place. I need to be there." "Mike, Tomorrow night you'll be here, I said. I wanted to give him a chance to be the father, even if his efforts hadn't been very active. The next day, I met Greg at a motel at 11:30, and he was already waiting for me. He had rented a room, and we spent time together. Everything was going as planned when suddenly there was a knock at the door. Greg apologized and went to open it. Standing there were several of his friends. Greg let them in, explaining, "I asked them to help you with your desire to have a child. These guys are trustworthy, and I vouch for them." This was an unusual step for me, but I really wanted a child, especially with the holidays approaching and the pressure from my mom. I agreed, and we spent several days trying to achieve the desired result. By the holidays, I was finally able to share the good news with my family over dinner. Next year, there will be one more seat at this table. The reactions around the table were mixed. My mom was beaming with happiness. Emily and her wife, Melissa, looked at me with slight sympathy. Mike's parents congratulated me, while Mike himself was clearly in shock. I smiled at him, but he didn't smile back. "I wanted to surprise you, honey," I said. "Well, you definitely did," he replied coldly. Did I feel guilty about what I had done to Mike? No. I wanted a child, and now I had one. It didn't matter to me which man was the father. This was my child, and that's all that mattered. I gave birth to a beautiful boy and named him William Alexander, after my grandfather. My last day of searching came when the doctor confirmed my pregnancy. I thanked everyone who had helped me and said goodbye to them. From then on, I remained true to myself and my choices. For the next 3 years, I lived with Mike until one day he left me for his secretary, who was 10 years younger than me, with a striking appearance and who knows what else. After that, my life changed in the most unexpected ways. Was I angry? Yes, because Mike clearly didn't want to be a father and only nominally participated in raising our child after he was born. I offered him a deal. Instead of selling the house and splitting the money, he would leave the house to me. I didn't ask for child support, and little Will's name wasn't even mentioned in the divorce papers. So Mike didn't have to pay anything. After that, my mom moved in with me and became my nanny, and I went back to work. A year after the divorce, I started dating again. Greg found out and came back into my life. We went on a few dates, and then we started spending more and more time together. He began insisting that our relationship become permanent, and I started considering it. Then something completely unexpected happened. Mike's relationship with the woman he left me for fell apart. He came to me, begging for forgiveness and asking for another chance. It was an interesting situation. I had loved him and was devastated when he left. Not a day had gone by since he left that I hadn't thought about him. Now I found myself in a difficult position. I had developed strong feelings for Greg, but Mike was back in my life. "You can't seriously be thinking about taking him back," Greg said, "especially after what he did." I replied, "Maybe it's fate. Maybe I'm getting what I deserve for what I did to him, but he did it openly in front of everyone, and he doesn't even know what I did." I didn't say he did it to punish me, but I thought it was possible that fate had arranged it this way. At the moment, I haven't made a decision. I haven't broken up with Greg, but I'm also seeing Mike to figure out my feelings. This situation has its perks. My love life is at an all-time high. Having 2 men vying for my attention is undeniably interesting. Honestly, I might never make a decision if I can keep both of them in my life. What do you think I should do? Should I forgive Mike or continue my relationship with Greg? And one more important question. What do you think about such drastic actions to have a child? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. Thanks for listening, and until next time.